Welcome to Faith and Work, where we empower and encourage believers to live out their faith in everyday life, no matter what job, industry, or hat you find yourself wearing. My prayer is always the same, that this podcast would help you grow in your faith and find your purpose, not in what you do, but in who you are in Christ. For the past few weeks, I've been sharing parts of David and I's story, and today we're stepping into something that I wish I had clarity on sooner: having a personal mission statement. Proverbs 13:3 says, "Commit your works to the Lord, and your thoughts will be established." Today's episode is about defining who God has called you to be, so that your decisions and boundaries and priorities flow from that place. Let's get into it. Welcome to Faith and Work. I'm so excited for you to join me on our first solo episode of this season for season 2. Today's topic is something I'm very passionate about, but also I feel like is so practical and something I wish I had done years and years ago, and that is the importance of having a mission statement. Why should we do it? What are they for? And what does it apply to our everyday life? You may have seen a mission statement on a business page. If you look on the church website that you go to, you may see a mission statement posted. A lot of times nonprofits are probably the best at having a mission statement posted. Their mission statements are typically very clear because they rely on a lot of funding. So they've got to really make that mission statement loud and clear for everyone. But what good does it do you and I to have our own mission statement? So we're going to dive into that today. But first, I want to read you some mission statements that I have seen posted on websites. So this is from Netflix. "We are here to entertain the world one fan at a time, thrilling everyone again and again. We do this through reach. We do it through recommendations." I have a paragraph of recommendations. "We do it through fandom," and then a little paragraph about fandom. So that is their mission. The goal of a mission statement, when you think about how a corporation might use it, is that so everyone from your payroll, recruiting, your IT teams, your support teams, everybody in every type of role knows what the mission is. They know what they are trying to accomplish with their piece of the business and how they are trying to make that mission happen every single day. And it keeps everyone focused and on task. Now, I've never worked for Netflix. I have no idea if this is something that they've just put on a website or if they actually do this mission statement. But here's another one that I thought was very fascinating from a church called The Belonging Co. in Nashville. It's the very first thing you see on the website, but I like this one a lot. It said, "Presence over presentation, intimacy over industry, people over position, encounter over entertainment, Jesus over everything." It's very clear. It's very repeatable. We'll talk about what makes up a good mission statement. But when you think about you and I having one, why would we have one? Well, when you think about a business and a corporation or even a church, the goal is in a church organization, you would have everyone, every volunteer should know what that mission statement is, so that the people at the Belonging Co. know what is important. They know that presence over presentation. So if something in a presentation goes wrong, it's okay because we are about the presence of the Holy Spirit. We are about intimacy over industry, people over position, encounter over entertainment, Jesus over everything. So when things happen in the church, a mission statement is what can bring you back to the center and say, is this on mission? Same with the organization. Is this on mission? And Netflix can say, we are supposed to be entertaining the world. We're thrilling the world. And so anything they're producing, they have to go back and ask themselves, is this really part of our mission? Do we need to get involved with this? Are we thrilling the world again and again? They have 3 different ways they do that. For a mission statement for you and I, the way that it can help us is when you think about the different hats that we wear. Every day, I have a lot of different hats that I wear just like you do. Some of you might be moms and dads or friends. You might be an aunt or an uncle. You might have another role or relationship in your life that's very important to you. And you wear a hat. You have a role in that relationship. There might be a job that you serve in where you wear a different type of hat. You might work in your church. All of us have different hats that we wear. But when we don't have one central thing that pulls us back, it can feel like none of those areas are aligned. Let me tell you what I mean. I started working on my mission statement several years ago when I started studying the Last Supper. I read a book called Don't Give the Enemy a Seat at Your Table by Louis Giglio. And that book really shed some light on different things in my life that were not super clear. And there were some areas in my life where I felt like I had given the enemy a seat at my own table. And he bases that book a lot off of Psalm 23, where David's writing and he says that the Lord has prepared a table before us in the presence of our enemies. The table is for us, and God prepared it for us. The table is not meant for our enemies. It's in the presence of our enemies because God's in the middle of all of it. But the table is not meant for that. So I had this vision of a table in my mind. And then from that book from Louis Giglio, that really got me thinking about the table that God has me sitting at and the table that God has put me at in different areas of my life. And in doing that study, I was working on a Bible study to share in a women's class, and I started studying the Last Supper. I started studying the table that Jesus was sitting at with the disciples and what he was saying to them at that table. And that really has nothing to do with Psalm 23, but studying Psalm 23 and hearing about the table that God has prepared for me kind of took me down a rabbit trail of thinking about a table. And I couldn't get away from the imagery of that. Then I started studying the Last Supper and that table. So for me personally, when I started working on my own mission statement, I had to start thinking about who is at my table and how am I giving them a voice. I started thinking about the disciples that Jesus invited to his table. I started thinking about what he said to them in John 13 when he said, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you." And then he said this, "People will know that you are my disciples by how you love one another." And I started thinking about the people on my team at work, the people in my family that are very different than I am. We may have different belief structures. We may have very different ways of viewing the world, but they're at my table. And so for me, something that is very strong for me and that is part of my mission statement that brings me back to the center no matter where I am, if I'm at work, if I'm at home, if I'm at my kid's school, meeting with a teacher, no matter where I am, it's important to me that everyone at my table has a voice and that I listen to that voice. Now, some voices at the table might have more of my attention than others, but I want to make sure that I'm taking time to hear the kids' teacher and hear their feedback. I want to make sure that every voice at the table that is represented on my team, I want to make sure that I give them a voice and that I take time to listen to that voice, especially when I know we're going to disagree. If I'm sitting at a table with my boss and he's at the head of the table, how would it be like if he said, "You know what, Carol, we disagree. I'm just not going to listen to your voice." For what if he said, "We disagree. I want to hear what you have to say. I want to hear your perspective. I want to hear what your experience brings to the table." So especially people that I know think differently than me, I want to make sure that they know they have a voice, that their voice is valued, that I take time to listen to that voice. It's very important for me. While I'm recording this, we actually have a house full of family from my husband's side. They're all staying here, and we have varying degrees of religious backgrounds and political backgrounds, and people from all over the country, from several different states are all here. And before everyone even got here, I told my husband, it has been a busy season for us, like I'm sure it is for a lot of listeners. And I told David, I said, the most important thing for me is I'm going to clean the house before everyone gets here. After that, probably going to be trash, and that's okay. We'll clean it up after. But the most important thing is that everyone knows that they are valued and that I took time to listen to them. Whether we agree on issues or we don't agree on issues, whether we see it the same way or we see it a little differently. And when I think back to the table that Jesus sat at, and I think back to him giving the disciples a voice and him telling the disciples, "People will know that you are mine by how you love one another." And for me, a tool that I can use to love people, no matter what environment I'm in, is how I listen to them. And that's something that God's given me personally that brings me back. If I am volunteering at a women's ministry at church and someone says, hey, I have an idea and it's different than my idea. And I think to myself, I really like my idea. Or I can say, you know what, you have a seat at my table and I want to hear your idea because they're at my table and I want to know. And so for me, the idea of bringing everyone back to the table, giving people a voice and loving them exactly where they are, not loving them if we agree, that helps me to bring me back to the center. And it helps me even when I'm thinking about my kids and I'm thinking about my husband. It can diffuse an argument for me when I think about my own mission statement. Something God's made really clear to me and reminded me of over and over and over is when I think, okay, man, this thing with David, I'm really frustrated by, but I think, have I taken the time to hear his perspective? And the chances are I haven't done that. And so if I stop and say, hey, what did you think about so-and-so situation? And he says, well, this and then this and this happened. And I can hear his side of it before I unload my frustration. That has solved so many arguments before they even happened because I took time to listen before I jumped in with my perspective. So that for me is something that has brought me back. But that's what I want to encourage you to do today is to think about what is your personal mission statement? What can you have as an anchor that brings you back? Maybe it's something that will only be with you for a season in life. A mission statement for a company, for a church, doesn't always stay with them for the life of their existence. Sometimes it might. Some churches are very, very mission focused. They are internationally mission focused. They are serving on foreign lands, and that is kind of their niche or their spot. That's where God's given them a vision and a mission to grow. That is their mission, the global church. Some churches are really, really good at community. The church David and I go to is so good at community events. They're great at hosting things for community. They're great at giving back to community. They help out at their local public schools. They do things for local teachers. They host events. When the government shut down food relief, they had food drives for people and they gave away free food to people in the community. They're very community focused. Some churches are very teaching focused. They're a teaching driven church. Different churches have different things that focus them so that everyone in the church, everyone volunteering knows what the mission is. What we have to come back and ask ourselves is our mission clear? Has God given us a word or has God given us something that can bring us back into focus when things get out of line? You may need a mission statement if you find yourself in these situations. Do you feel yourself being pulled into someone else's mission? Then you find yourself spending hours and hours of volunteer work into something that's not really even something God's ever put on your heart to do, but now you have allowed someone else's mission to become your mission. And that might not always be bad to help out and volunteer, but now you've committed all of your time and you have no time to commit to the mission that God gave you to do. You might find yourself being pulled and feeling really chaotic and being really torn because you've overpromised to do someone else's mission and you've got no time to do what God asked you to do. Your mission statement should be these three things. It should be understandable, very, very clear. It should be repeatable. You should be able to tell your friends. You should be able to have an accountability partner that you go through and you tell them what your mission statement is. It should be able to fit on a 3x5 card. This is not a thesis. This is not something you have to write on your resume. This is something that is a clear mission for you. The one for Netflix was the very first thing that you see when you log into their website. The one for the Belonging Co. was the very first thing you see on the website. You see a picture of their church and worship, and you see these words right below it. And when you think about not having a mission statement, you might feel a little bit of chaos in your life. Maybe for you, family is very, very important. Maybe for you, you're in a season where you need balance. I know I've talked to several friends this year and God has given them the theme of rest. There was one friend that I interviewed just this past week and her podcast episode will air later on this year. I cannot wait for you to meet her, Kimberly Hawkins, but she talks about God giving her a very specific theme in her life of resting, but not just resting, but resting in Him and finding her rest in Him. We don't always find Jesus in an empty calendar. Sometimes we find him in a busy calendar, but we find rest in him. And I love how she phrased it and how she said it in her episode. It was amazing. You've got to keep an eye out for that episode. Kimberly Hawkins. She was an amazing, amazing guest. But all of us have different things that God's put on our heart to do. And when we don't nail down our mission of what God's given us to do, we can feel really jerked around. There is all kinds of noise, either on social media or in a book or anything. I've got books on my bookshelf that are so good that I cannot wait to dive into. But right now, they're not part of my mission today. One day I will sit down and I will take the time to read them. But right now, God's given me a different focus for this current season. There's a book I'm looking at right now on my bookshelf, and it's called You Are a Theologian by Jen Wilkin and J.T. English. And I want to read that book so badly. But right now, I have some other books that I know I need to read. There's some deeper diving into the Word that I'm doing that I really need to do. There's some things that I'm doing at work that I really need to study more on. There's some things I'm doing in my own study for the podcast. Those things are important right now. One day I will get to that book. I really can't wait to read it. I think David gave it to me for Christmas last year. And I think I might have bought myself that one for Christmas and wrapped it and put it under the tree. I think I did that a couple of years. Anyway, there's a lot of books I'm looking at. Like, one day I'm going to read that. One day I'm going to read that. But right now I've got some other things that are inside of me that I need to focus on. And everything else right now that's not part of that mission is noise. And it's not that I'm cutting it out for good, but I'm trimming it down for now to focus. There's certain things in life that we have to trim so that we can focus on the mission that God's given us to do. It's not forever. It's for a season. Our missions can change. A business model changes over time. Churches might be going one direction and God starts shifting them a different direction, and that's okay. For me, right now, there's two parts of my mission, and that is giving everyone that is at my table a voice. I want to hear what they have to say. The other part of my mission is that the people that are at my table, it is a tool of evangelism to love them so much that people say, wow, you must be a follower of Jesus because you're loving them so much and you're loving them so well. So for me, those are the two parts of my mission right now, above podcasting, above my corporate job, above anything else. How am I loving my kids? How am I loving my husband? How am I loving my team? How am I loving the women at church? How am I loving my family, my extended family? How am I loving them? The people that are sitting at my table, how am I demonstrating they are image bearers? They are made in the image of Christ. How can I love them more? How can I listen to them? And what voices am I listening to at my table? So friends, I hope if you do not have a mission statement that this inspired you to sit down and write one, I would love to hear your mission statement. I would love for you to text it to me. I have a number. We've not talked about it a lot this season, but I do have a number just for Faith and Work podcast listeners. And that private number is 615-669-3209. Again, that number is 615-669-3209. I will also put it in the show notes. I would love for you to text me your mission statement. What is a verse God has given you this year? What is a focus God's given you this year? Again, it's not something for the rest of your life, but it's something for right now. How are you narrowing your mission to stay focused? Let me hear it. As we close out today, I want to leave you with this reminder. A personal mission statement is not about control, it's about alignment. Psalm 119:105 tells us, "Your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path." When life feels noisy and decisions feel heavy, your mission helps you return to the path God has already illuminated. This week, I encourage you to write a mission statement, maybe with a spouse or trusted friend, and invite accountability when life starts to pull you off course. Next week, I'll be joined by my friend Elizabeth, a therapist with a powerful story about how God used unexpected moments to shape her calling and deepen her understanding of purpose and healing. If today's episode encouraged you, I would love for you to share it with a friend. And if you're enjoying the Faith and Work podcast, leave a review and help others to find the show. Until next time.